Yo, 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 what's up, guys? Welcome to episode 9 of our interview series that we've been doing on behalf of Aurafest. Again, shout out real quick to Tim from Aurafest for sponsoring these and throwing these together. Super excited about this one, man. We've been getting some really badass bands on, but this one's pretty special, man, because it's a huge influence for me personally in this band and for a lot of people that are probably watching this right now. So super excited. Matt Brusso from Bury Your Dead is on stream right now. What's up, man? Good, man. I'm glad we were able to get the technicalities out of the way and actually get this set up here. There's usually a little bit of a period, yeah, and then there's always some kind of Skype and Zoom and Discord want to act up sometimes, but hey, it is what it is, man. We understand you're busy. Was saying earlier, you got the Bury Your Dead life and the dad life happening. And then you said earlier, not so much Bury Your Dead, more like dad life. So what is that that balance for you? Kind of speaking on that a little bit to start out here. So we all know, obviously, you've been in Bury Your Dead. Actually, when'd you come on with Bury Your Dead? Actually, was it early 2000s? Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, yeah. Yeah, for sure, for sure. So yeah, you said earlier that it's like, yeah, I don't really do Bury Your Dead much. It's more like dad life now. People, obviously, most of us know that you're a school teacher. You were at one point. Is that something you're still doing? Like, how are you balanced? It's such an interesting dynamic too, and I think a lot of people. That's one reason why they like Bury Your Dead so much. Is because it's like you just have this heavy ass, hard ass band. And then you just have Matt, who's a school teacher. So it's like, how do the people just like, do your students know that you do this type of thing on the side? It's like, what is that dynamic for you between Bury Your Dead and dad / school teacher life? Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah.
and but yeah, so we talk about balance. Like I said, there really is no balance. Like, it's not like Bury Your Dead's just not a huge part of my life,
Hmm.
really. But that's okay, because now I sell windows for a living. That's what I do, and I have my two boys, and I just want to go to the campground every weekend. That's all I want. So
Yeah.
it's the best.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. It seems like we did have an audio issue that I just got fixed. Thank you, people in chat, for letting us know. But you were not coming through, but now you are, so we're good. So apologize about that, guys.
Well, they missed all the brilliant shit I was saying. Do we just go back and just?
I mean, hey, if you want to rewind, but no, we were talking about balancing band life, dad life, etc. And then kind of I get you had said, just kind of paraphrase, you had joined Bury Your Dead in about 2001. Did a stint for a while, left, came back, weren't really sure on the exact dates. And then Edict was their vocalist is Joe, correct? And that's why you said
Joe. Yeah, the original singer for Bury Your Dead, Joe Kruko, is in a band called Edict now.
Okay.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
all that was a long way of answering your question about balance, and it's like now we just do Bury Your Dead when it seems fun, right? There's an Aura Fest.
Yeah.
They reach out and they're like, "Do you want to play this festival with us?" And we're like, "Yes, I do want to do that." And we kind of don't have to do it if we don't want to. So
Yeah. Do you guys, I guess, kind of talking about your tour schedule and stuff? I mean, obviously, you guys probably won't be touring like you used to, but I mean, is there is this the kind of dynamic with shows that you guys are going to keep doing moving forward? It's just like, hey, if it's fun, hey, if it works out, we're not really going to do any more of these month and a half long stints, or is that just kind of what you guys are planning moving forward?
Yeah, that's kind of the deal now, is like, we're all so scattered. We have members that live in New York and Ohio and California and Connecticut. So it's like, yeah, it's definitely not it's not a full-time gig anymore, right? Everybody's got their own jobs, their own projects that they're getting off the ground. And so that's it. Like we'll play, maybe 10 shows in 2023 and that'll be it.
Yeah.
And, I wouldn't want it any other way though, because it means we get to be really picky. We get to really just choose the ones that we want to do, the ones that we know are going to be fun. And they've all been bananas.
Yeah. Yeah. How's that been for you guys? Maybe you specifically, after being on hiatus for a little bit and coming back, and then having your 2019 release, We Are Bury Your Dead, and then coming back and doing shows again. Do you notice maybe a difference between the shows that you're playing now? Obviously, you're not playing as many, but you're saying, hey, they're going bananas. I mean, do you notice a little bit of a dynamic and difference between the shows that you're doing now versus the ones that you did back then? It's like the new kids now, maybe this new generation versus the old generation. I mean, it seems maybe like some people, maybe you yourself, maybe somebody else kind of expects it almost to where it's perhaps the newer generation doesn't know Bury Your Dead as much because, I mean, what, Cover Your Tracks was 2004, right? And then Beauty and Breakdown was 2006. That. Yeah. So those shows now versus back then, I mean, do you notice a difference with those as far as the kids that are coming out? And
well, the shows now definitely have like a nostalgia vibe to them, right? Like when people find out that Bury Your Dead is playing, somewhere near them, generally speaking, people get pumped because they're like, oh, I remember seeing Bury Your Dead in, 2007 and it was crazy. And, we're all older now, so it's nice to know that everybody's going to get home safe.
Yeah.
But, I don't know. There's a lot of dynamic at play, right? I think about sometimes, right? Like the shows, if they don't seem as just straight up violent, well, that's because everybody's got a cell phone out. Nobody wants to commit a felony when there's 300 cell phones in the room.
That's a good point.
but they're not. They're still fun. Like that's the thing, is like kids still go absolutely bananas for bands. I've been going to probably more shows lately than I have in the last 10 years. And it's like really cool seeing like local bands kind of still continue to fill a room full of kids that just want to come and like let loose, find something cool to do on the weekends, supplement family that they might not have at home. I mean, none of that is different.
Yeah.
We're just doing it with cell phones now. So it can't be felonious.
It can't be as ridiculous. It can't be as much, like you said, felonies happening.
But they're still pretty ridiculous. I'm watching this on the YouTube. I want to see, are there people in the comments? Or are they only saying that we're having technology issues? I want to know.
So they were definitely saying that at first. We've got a couple coming in now. He said, Jeremy says, glad Second Death gets to play some of those shows. Edict and Set the Dead are coming for you, Matt. Oh, yeah, good. Yeah. Rich says Edict and Second Death are coming for you.
I accept. Good. All right,
yeah,
cool.
For sure. But yeah, you should be able to pull up that live chat on YouTube and see what people are saying. So yeah, anybody watching too, if you got any questions or anything you want to ask, hit us. We'll answer them. But yeah, so another thing I kind of wanted to pick your brain about or kind of ask you about, I didn't really see this on the Wikipedia at all, but for some reason it seems like the rumor was that Bury Your Dead started as a joke band. Is that true?
So I wasn't in Bury Your Dead when it started as a joke band, but when I joined Bury Your Dead, it was very obvious that we were continuing the joke band. Mm-hmm. As a matter of fact, Rich right there in the chat, Rich would know he was part of that joke band. It was
really
how absurd. If you listen to Hatebreed mm-hmm. and you're like, well, this is overly complicated, we can simplify this a little bit. And then you boil Hatebreed down to just the simple breakdown parts. Is that enough to be able to play shows and get into shows for free with your friends? That was kind of the vibe. And,
okay.
And then when I was in my mosh band in high school, it was like, oh, we're playing this show with Bury Your Dead. I was like, oh, I've never heard of that band before. And I'd show up and people were like, oh, the whole premise of this band is just that it's the stupidest, simplest mosh parts you can write, and we're going to just destroy this place. And I was like, I can do that. And then they go up there and they just say, bury your fucking dead over and over again. And you're like, oh, I get this. I totally get this. So then I just had to try to pick up the ball and run with it from there. There was definitely a concerted effort when we signed to Victory to try to be like, I don't know, a little bit more serious, a little bit more professional in our approach to like touring and stuff. But no matter where we went to play, the message had already reached. The message had already gotten there that Bury Your Dead was going to be the crazy, silly band.
Yeah.
You better destroy this place. So.
That's hilarious, man. Yeah, I've been a fan since Cover Your Tracks came out in 2004, so it's really interesting. I remember hearing that, like, oh yeah, Bury Your Dead started as a joke band all the way back then. So it's pretty interesting to hear that explained to you now in 2023. Dude, that was almost 20 years after the fact. It's insane.
And then when we started getting like bigger tours, that was the most hilarious part. Like being on, these giant national tours, playing amphitheaters in a bus with my face on the side of it and being like, do you think they didn't notice that we named all the songs Tom Cruise movies? Like, do you think like we're going out there and all these these great bands that I like genuinely love and respect, but they all just take themselves so friggin' seriously. And their crews are all so super intense and like hyper professional. And we're just like, oh, we're actually going to just set our faces on fire and scream a lot, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's hilarious, man. Yeah, because it's really interesting to hear about that dynamic because, I mean, the thing... And this was actually going to be something I was going to ask you was about the song specifically, Mosh and Roll / Losing It. Because the thing that's always been really interesting to me about you guys is how you've seemingly pulled off that dynamic. And even though there are some people in the scene that say, yeah, Bury Your Dead started as a joke band, blah, blah, blah. And a lot of us didn't really know if that was true or not. Now we do. There was still that aspect of, well, people didn't know that. And then people that don't know that, it's like, okay, I saw this band called Bury Your Dead, and the last song that they played during their set, they chanted their band name the entire time. I mean, So the thing that's funny to me, go ahead.
It's been professionally recorded like 5 times.
Right? It's the funniest shit because I'm thinking, okay, let's think about this. Who else could pull that off? Like, seriously. Who else could pull off, okay, this is our band name. Like you said, we're going to professionally re-record. I think it 3 times, at least 4 times. We're going to professionally re-record this song on 3 different albums. We're going to chant our own band name. And then when we play it live, it's going to be the biggest pileup of our entire set. And we always have to play it live. And the entire crowd is chanting. There's no other band that I can think of that has that dynamic that can pull that shit off.
Well, from a marketing perspective, it's pretty genius. I wish I thought of it.
Yeah.
It's what I remember. It's literally like we would show up. They'd be playing a random college in Vermont, and we'd be like, "Oh, Bury Your Dead's playing this show," so I already know all the words because it's just Bury Your fucking Dead over and over again. And if you're in the crowd and you're just watching people just be very mean to one another, and then they start playing that song, you're like, "Oh, I can get involved in this song." It's like I'm already practiced at this song, even though I've never heard it before.
Yeah.
But and then the reality is it became this really powerful engine I always used to tell everybody, and it's still like advice that I give when people ask me about being in a band is like, if you played after Bury Your Dead, like you were 100% going to regret it because we were going to be the most energetic band on stage the entire night. There was nothing you could do to top it. We were going to try to play as tight as we possibly can. It was going to be percussive and impactful. And if for some reason none of that worked, we were going to yell Bury Your fucking Dead at the end of the set 117 times until the entire place lost their friggin' mind.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're supposed to load your gear up there and be like, all right, we also have songs. Like, nope, fuck you. We actually just say the name of our band over and over again, and it's way cooler than anything else that you're going to bring to the table.
That's hilarious. Yeah, because every time I've seen you guys all the way from Georgia and a couple of times, all the way from Texas, everywhere else, I mean, Orfest 2018, and it was Texas Independence Fest 2016, I believe.
That was a great show.
Oh my God, that lineup, which we can talk about that. But yeah, every time it's exactly kind of what you said, to where, I mean, you know what the last song is going to be. It's going to be that song where they sing their band name, and the entire, even people that didn't move the entire set, it's like, all right, well, I'm going to at least crawl or climb on this mountain of people to get on top of this mic. I mean, like the 7 Venue show, for instance, I remember there was I can literally only describe it as a mountain of people. Yeah. Because the stage at that venue at the time was pretty high, and you just like straight up disappeared. I mean, it was just like a sea of people. And so to be able to get to that point where you're at that dynamic where it's just like you're singing your band name over and over again is just the coolest shit, man. It's so funny.
It is. It's really, really wild. I'll tell you, the secret is the safest place to be is actually the very, very bottom of the pile. I've been doing it a long time now, and all the jumping and head walking is actually happening at the top. So you want to get in early. You want to get in often. And I think the record is playing it 5 times in one set. You know, when we we're a one-trick pony. I said it before, we're a one-trick pony, but it's a heavy fucking trick. So
yeah,
we've definitely done it a handful of times in the same show just to get a laugh.
So the whole song got played 5 times, not just you did the chant 5 times.
No, yeah, like then we finish it and we ring out and people put down instruments and we walk away and then we come back out and do it again. And then we put our instruments down and we walk away.
You did that 5 times?
And then, well, that particular, we opened the set with it. Then we played it twice at the end of the set. And I can't remember what band we were on tour with at the time, but the next band that played, because that's what's fun about touring is you play the shows with the same group of people every night for 2 months. They were like, we're going to also do Bury Your Dead at the end of our set. And we're like, so we came out again and did it at the end of their set. And then, of course, we had to encore it then. So. Oh,
my God. That's hilarious, man. That's so funny. It's such an interesting dynamic that you guys have, man, that nobody else can pull off. I mean, I know for a fact that if we were to try to do that shit, like, and we were to try to say our own band name and then go on stage and just play a breakdown and say our own band name, literally just walkouts. I mean, just... we just couldn't do it.
Tom, right? That's your name?
Yeah, Thomas, whichever.
What band are you in, Tom?
So I'm in Manhack. I play guitar for Manhack. We're like a metalcore, deathcore, groove metal band from Atlanta. So
I think there's a way you could work Manhack. The trick is you got to put a swear in it. You can't just say Manhack. It has to be like, you got to go Kubla Khan on them, and you got to be like Manhack, bitch. And then just be like, and people be like, damn, that's heavy as fuck.
Yeah. Okay. Hey, you know what? I appreciate that tip, man. We might actually try to work that in somehow now. It's like, well,
you could, I mean, plenty of bands have borrowed the riff.
Yeah.
Without just chanting their band's name. They just like can't write a heavier breakdown. So they just use that one. You're more than welcome to use it. It's in the public
forum. Domain.
That's public domain.
You heard it from Matt right here. Public domain. That mosh and roll. That's funny. Yeah. Rich says, y'all playing anything off the 2019 or Jeremy asks if y'all are playing anything off the 2019 release. That EP goes so hard.
That's got to be We Are Bury Your Dead. Mm-hmm. So my favorite song on that is Collateral.
That one's badass.
So it's very likely that we'll play Collateral. That's my favorite one to play. Yeah, that song's really, really bananas.
Yeah.
When I first heard the song and I realized I got to write words to it, I was just like, oh, that's so cool. I felt like, because I felt like I was getting a peek into like what the future of heavy was. Like it doesn't sound like old Bury Your Dead. It's not derivative of old. heavy songs. It's like a new heavy. So like when we play it, I still get like new excited because it's like another thing that people can really get into and other songs can, kind of come off of.
Yeah, for sure. Rich wants to know, or let me see. Rich says 100%.
That's Rich Gatch. So Rich Gatch was actually one of the original guitar players in Bury Your Dead. He's in Edict now as well.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So he's commenting on what it was like when I was saying that Bury Your Dead started off as a joke band. It was like us and our friends get into this thing. He was like 100% because he was the one getting into those shows.
Yeah,
he remembers.
Yeah, he said, quote unquote, we just want to make the whole place mosh and destroy stuff. I guess kind of quoting you on what you said.
We were the band at that time. Early Bury Your Dead was really good at being the last band allowed to play whatever college was stupid enough to book them.
Yeah.
We did. There was like before I was in the band, and then when I was in the band early, college shows are great because they have a budget to burn, so they would always overpay bands. And it was like there was like hardcore bands started to figure that out, so they'd play like little university shows to 50 or 60 or 70 kids, but somehow they'd find $2,000 to pay bands with, which was just insane at that time.
Nice.
So you'd show up and you'd play, and then famously for Bury Your Dead, it was like the ceiling would get torn down, or somebody would try to throw an ice machine, or they would just destroy anything that wasn't nailed down. And then the colleges were like, okay, so that's the last time we're ever gonna have a heavy show. That was Bury Your Dead got really good at being the last heavy show at universities.
Yeah. Did you guys ever? I mean, obviously, you just named off some pretty crazy situations that happened, but I mean, what I guess, kind of speaking of playing at kind of unconventional places, what's one of the craziest places that you guys have ever played at, or shows or anything where it's been kind of like a, hey man, why the hell are we playing here? Like, what is happening right now?
Oh, there's been so many of those. There's been so many of those. Like, because one, again, it kind of falls in the category of like advice that I give bands is like, you and anybody that cares to hear it, you have to headline. Like, you can't wait for big bands to want to take you out on tour and be the first band that plays at 3:00 in the afternoon for, some big band that can't fill the room anymore, right? Like, nobody, that doesn't advance your career. It's an important part, but another thing that you have to do is go around and headline after that. You have to play to 10 people, 11 people, and get paid $50 to try to get gas money to get to the next show. Because then when you come through again supporting another band, you're not first, you're second. And they respect your band because they've seen posters of just your band on the wall, even if nobody actually came to those shows. So when we were early on, like when Rich Casey was like booking all the shows that we were playing, like we would play anywhere that would put on a heavy show. And I remember specifically there was like this like junkyard dump outside of Las Vegas. That was like a venue that the guy was trying to get off the ground. Like he literally it literally seemed like they built a stage out of pallets, rented a PA, and they would like sell tickets to get into the gate of this dump. And it was like literally a dump, dude. It was straight up a landfill. And
literally and figuratively.
Like in every way. And kids would go ape shit there. I mean, they would go crazy. But I say that, but there was, maybe 50 tickets bought, you know what I mean? They'd go crazy, but it wasn't like crazy because we were selling it out. It was crazy because you're playing at a dump in the middle of the desert outside of Las Vegas. Like it felt like only bad things were supposed to happen. It was great. It was fucking awesome.
Yeah.
But yeah, we used to play all kinds of crap. I mean, and then I rejoined Bury Your Dead. We put out Mosh and Roll, and some people are excited about it. Some people are less excited about it. We go to tour to support that record, and there's other big bands on the tour. It's like with For the Fallen Dreams and stuff, and we're playing shows, and some places are completely sold out, and other shows are just nobody gives a shit about my band anymore, which is totally fine. I don't give a fuck. But we're like, we play I think specifically we played like the Carolinas or something like that. And it was like the show was booked to happen in a field behind a Mexican restaurant. And it was like, they've never had like live music other than music for the restaurant. So I have to imagine that they've had like musical acts that are appropriate to the food that they serve, or the clientele that they serve, or maybe country western music, maybe Mexican influence music. I have no idea, but certainly they didn't expect Bury Your Dead and For the Fallen Dreams to play this field behind their restaurant, because there was probably like 12 people there that liked hardcore and a bunch of very angry people. It was, yeah, we've done them all, but that's what you have to do. Like you have to. There can be no ego. There can be no pride. It's literally just like, okay, well, what did we learn, and how do we make sure that doesn't happen again? And the reality is, it happens again anyway, so it doesn't friggin' matter. Yeah. There's a lot of good insight too in there, man, that you provided. So I appreciate you spilling some of that out about the whole. Obviously setting your ego aside, but also you got to play some headlining shows. Like, yeah, supporting slots are important, but sometimes you got to have your name at the top of that flyer. And even if you didn't play in front of that many people, it's like you said, and you come back through again, now you're second, now you're third, now you're fourth, etc. So yeah, it's some good tips there. When we were doing in 2002, 2003, when we were just doing circles around the country over and over and over again, and it was 5 circles around the country a year, every year, no matter what. It was literally like, okay, well, let's do, we did a circle. I just remember being like, well, we'll do a circle around the country, and every single night we're going to sell ourselves to the 8 people that paid and the other bands that played the show, so that we can headline and just go as hard as we possibly can. And it's so funny, because you as time goes on, I look back on those shows like super fondly, and I'm like, God, it was such a cool ride, and blah 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 blah. Then every now and then I see a video of them, and they're just trash. There's really 12 people there. Like I think, and I'm like, oh, those shows were so violent, and everybody got hurt. And then you look back, and you're like, no, nobody got hurt. There was 11 people there. 3 of those people are moms, and like, but then and then you go through, and somebody's like, oh yeah, Bury Your Dead is like a professional touring band. Like, they do the circles around the country. So when a bigger act is like, who can we take out to support? They're like, well, Bury Your Dead, like they're the real deal. They're not just some local. And we had to grind for that. And it was like one of the things that I don't know if it was on purpose, to be totally honest, because Bury Your Dead had some momentum. They certainly hadn't done any like national touring before I joined, but they had some momentum. And I don't know if it was a conscious decision before I was on, but when I was in the band, we were like, we got to keep doing this. And then, it takes off from there. But yeah, that's a good point for sure. Doing the circles around the country and then kind of working your way up, because that's what a lot of bigger bands want to see from smaller bands. If they're going to bring you on, is, hey, yeah, your social media presence might be good. You might have some nice videos that look nice and you spend a lot of money on, and you might have good merch, but it's like, hey, what are your tour numbers? Right? Right. Like, how many shows have you played across? Have you been able to tour on your own and figure that out already and kind of do that grind? Yeah, so it seems like for a lot of bigger bands, yeah, that's one of the big requirements. So it seems like that's a good skill that anybody's band, if they're wanting to kind of level up, would be wise to double down on almost. Yeah, well, that's because I'm that band now, right? Now I'm like, okay, we're going to headline this show. There's not a ton of money for other bands. And it's not like what other band can sell out a show in Savannah, Georgia. That's my band's job. It's like, what band can we bring that can bring 30 more tickets that we wouldn't have sold? You know what I mean? And that's going to be a band that's been there before and probably only sold 20 tickets the last time, but that's okay, because I believe they'll bring 30 this time. That's all you need. Yeah, for sure. Let me grab a couple of questions here. A couple of questions from social media posts, actually. One, I wanted to know, what's your favorite Tom Cruise movie? Oh, that's a really cool question. It's got to be Top Gun, because that's the best one. So it's Top Gun. Just as you texted me No, Tim texted me, let me know that the audio wasn't working. But it's Top Gun, and then there's so many other good ones. I mean, like Last Samurai is such a sick movie.
Ooh, that is a
Collateral,
good one.
such a good movie. Maybe Reacher, that Jack Reacher movie that he did.
Oh, that must have been a while ago, because now they have that Jack Reacher Amazon series, right?
Amazon has a TV show, Jack Reacher.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. Yeah. Nope, he's the OG. Actually, there might have even been one before that. I have no idea. But no, there's so many good ones. Yeah, I'm gonna go with Top Gun because it's the clear winner.
Okay.
But the battle for second place is Last Samurai, Collateral, or Minority Report.
Yeah.
That's my official.
For sure. Those are classics. Adam wants to know, any plans for touring the West Coast?
We are trying to get to the West Coast. We really want to bring this this 20 years of Bury Your Dead, some shows where the West Coast gets to see Joe Kruko yell Bury Your Dead and not be able to headbang. We really do want to get that out to the West Coast. So there is nothing official. We kind of have some feelers out there. You know, there's a lot of venues and promoters that we work with on the West Coast. So it is something that we should be able to do. But as of right now, there's nothing official for that.
Okay. Keep your ears and eyes peeled. Might be getting something soon. See, on YouTube here, Diamond says, can't wait to see Bury Your Dead again. My wife and I got VIP tickets.
Okay, that's cool. I don't know. The VIP sounds neat because I think we get to throw axes or something like that.
Oh, damn. That's awesome.
Yeah, I don't exactly know how it's going to work, but I'm excited to hang out. VIP stuff is always fun because otherwise the day is really boring. So it's fun to have something to do other than just wait for time to go by.
Yeah, for sure. Another social media question. Wanted to know if you're a fan of the albums that Mike Terry did, and if that would have been you in your position, how do you think that those albums might have unfolded differently?
I don't know. I don't know if they would have unfolded differently. Am I a fan of them? That's a fun one because I didn't listen to them until I was back in the band. So when they came out, I wasn't like necessarily following what the band was doing. I think a lot of people forget, like, Mike Terry didn't like kick me out of the band, or the band didn't like demand that they get a new singer or Mike Terry. I literally left. We stopped at a gas station in like Kentucky, and we got out of the van, and I was literally like, hey guys, I think this is going to be my last tour. Like, it was like literally like that. So when they got Mike Terry, it was like, okay, cool. Like, they've got somebody that can run with this torch because he rules. His voice is bananas. I think at the time his scream voice actually sounded very similar to mine. So
for sure.
So onward they marched. I wasn't really like following it. I wasn't really paying attention to it. So it wasn't until I rejoined the band that I even really listened to those songs. And now they're great songs. We play quite a few of them recently on these shows that we just did, where he was able to join us, and we had 3 singers from Bury Your Dead on the stage at the same time, which was really fucking insane.
Yeah, that was awesome, man. I was going to bring that up, man. I'm guessing that's probably the only time that's happened in your band's history. I mean, I think he did a few shows with that, right? Or was that like a tour?
Yeah.
Or was it like a few one-off shows or something?
So he did one West Coast show where we did the live DVD that we recorded in Anaheim. We kind of did a show to celebrate that, and he came out because he lives on the West Coast, so he came out to do that show with us. And that was, whether people realized it or, I mean, people seem to realize it or not because the place went bananas, but whether people realized it or not, that was like super special. Like, we were like pretty sure that would never happen again.
Yeah.
I mean, he's like, his band Volumes is like so much more significant than Bury Your Dead is right now. And like, the stuff that they're recording is so insane. It's just like, he's just like on a different tier than part-time Bury Your Dead is, you know?
Yeah.
So then when we invited him, I called him and asked him if he'd be interested that Joe Kruko is going to be doing these shows. I really wanted to make the Worcester show because that's like my hometown. I really wanted to make sure that one was like particularly special. Does he want to come out and try to make that one like really something else? And when he agreed to do it, I was like blown away that he would take the time. I mean, talk about flying 6 hours for like no gain whatsoever, just to come have a good time. and make sure that other people have a good time, which is kind of like Mike Terry's thing. It's really important to have a good time. So I got to sing backup vocals for him, which was really fun. He's got these big, lofty, clean vocal parts, and I was like, I'll give it a shot. And those shows were insane. That Worcester show is peak Bury Your Dead. It was friggin' insane. And they were special. So to be honest, I kind of forgot the question because I just got excited to answer it.
Oh, no worries. No, yeah, I mean that seems like not many times in most bands' history that's happened before, where it's almost like if you have member changes with bands, it's almost like you don't expect them to ever come back for any reason, right? But it's interesting that you guys, and you were saying just now, you phoned them up and you were pretty stoked about that happening, how you were able to get 3 of them from completely different time periods.
We're gonna go one better, and only a handful of people are even aware of it. But at that Worcester show, I was on stage singing. Mike Terry was on stage singing. That was obviously the gentleman from those 2, the self-titled. And It's Nothing Personal. Mm-hmm. Joe Kruko was singing, who was from the original demo, and then the first full length, You Had Me at Hello. And then also for one song, Mark Hunley got on stage. Mark is the second singer from the original demo. The original demo that was put out with 4 songs, but I believe that they tracked 6 songs when they had 2 singers, when they were like part of that beat down band with 2 singers thing that tried to take off. And Mark never did any like big touring with them or whatever, but he was on the record. So that's 4 Bury Your Dead singers on the stage at the same time. And my sister Melissa came up and did guest vocals. And while she technically never sang for the band, she wrote like almost all of the lyrics with me.
Wow.
So she's like Bury Your Dead singer by proxy. So I would say you got 5. Really, the only one that was missing was Crafter, who's a dude from Australia, and he joined Bury Your Dead after I quit and did like a handful of shows before going back to Australia. And there was another dude whose last name I'm not going to remember, but his name was Mike, and he did one show with Bury Your Dead when they got back together before I joined. So we were 2 singers away from everybody that's ever sang for Bury Your Dead.
Wow. That's an insane feat to accomplish, though. I mean, like we were saying earlier, man, I mean, it's tough for a lot of bands, it seems like, anyway, to kind of reach back and be able to say, hey, we want to do a show with all of our, or at least most of them, our previous singers, and then it actually happened. I mean, that had to have been pretty crazy, man, to have just a whole skew of songs from the entire discography, and then you just have all these vocalists coming up, man. That show was that definitely must have been badass, man.
It was cool. It was cool getting to see each singer get their own pop too. It was like really cool. And like I said, some of it is super insider ball. Like Mark Hunley going up there and singing, I think he sang 10 Minute Romance with us. Like you would really have to have been along the journey with Bury Your Dead for like, back when I was a fan of Bury Your Dead and not even in it, to like even know what you were witnessing there, you know? And then having my sister Melissa come up and sing a song, like she just looks like some random girl that took the mic, unless you followed Bury Your Dead and read the interviews and heard me talk about her. And so it was really cool. That Worcester night was super special. I don't know it'll ever be done again.
Yeah. It seems like a pretty once in a lifetime opportunity, even for you guys. Let's check up some comments here real quick. Next year being the 20-year. Here we go. Next year, Ripshit Ricky says, what a eloquent screen name too, by the way. Next year being the 20-year anniversary of Cover Your Tracks, possibility of a remix / remaster / re-record.
I've said before, dude, I would love to re-record that record. I think there are some people, that kind of like what that record sounds like, because it's like kind of unique, but when I hear unique, all I hear is that it sounds like trash. So with how far recording has come, I mean, like even fake drums sound better than the live drums on that record. So I would love to re-record that record. I don't know if it'll ever happen. We don't have any designs to do it now, but I would absolutely kill to re-record that record and make it sound like, I mean, just think about how fucking huge bands sound nowadays.
Yeah.
Like, God, you go to shows and you're just like, this is like just the sickest stage sound. We're in a really cool time for heavy music. It's just so sure. Nasty.
100%. Yeah. And then you got guys like Buster, who's doing recordings for Humanity's Last Breath. If anybody knows who that is that's watching, and talking about mixes that just sound huge. I mean, the dude is just like the stuff that he does for Humanity's Last Breath and Throne. You listen to these mixes and you're like, man, my mix will never sound like this, but hey, we're at least going to try. So yeah, you're right for sure. Talking about the mixes too, there was a going from Cover Your Tracks to kind of Beauty and the Breakdown. Pretty big increase in the mix there for that. When you guys came out with Beauty and the Breakdown, I think it was 2006. My opinion is that album was ahead of its time, and that a lot of people really weren't prepared for this. I mean, because the thing is, it was still Bury Your Dead. I mean, it just sounded like the riffs that were pretty much more or less on Cover Your Tracks, but the recording was just like way better. One of my favorite recordings, by the way. If I'm when I'm recording Manhack music, I'm like, all right, does my kick sound good? Hold on, let me pull up a Wishing Well real quick and make sure that I'm in the right. I swear to God, I still do that shit to this day.
It sounds way better than Cover Your Tracks for sure.
Yeah. Was there any? I guess I'm kind of wondering, was there any backlash from that? Because it was like you were doing these certain types of, not like you were really doing it on purpose, but like Cover Your Tracks sounded a certain way. You Had Me at Hello sounded a certain way. And then you go to Beauty and the Breakdown and you kind of have these, I don't want to say it's like a new metal sound, but I mean, obviously it's still Bury Your Dead, but it's just a lot better production now. Was there a difference? I mean, did you guys get any shit for that? Because it's like, oh, hey, well, we think you're hardcore or metalcore and you're supposed to sound this way, and now you sound way better. I feel like back then, the dynamic was different for having better recordings than it is now, because nowadays it's just so easy, almost, it seems like, to get your shit to sound really good. Did you notice anything like that when you came out with Beauty and the Breakdown?
I think there was a part of me that like expected to get that a little bit, but we really didn't. And I don't know how to express it. Because people were just like on board because it was still just stupid heavy.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole thing just opens with a breakdown. It was like, and everybody got to come along. Like there were times, especially when we started doing some of the bigger national tours and like the big summer tours and stuff like that. There were times where it was like, is this, because when I talk about Bury Your Dead's a hardcore band. And when we talk about Bury Your Dead, like it's a hardcore band. And then that's around the same time that people start talking about hardcore is metal and metal is hardcore. And it was just like, okay, well, we're kind of pushing that boundary for sure, whether, you want to call it like selling out or it's just production value or it's the number of people you could put in a room. But for us, it was just putting more targets in the room. Like, yeah. Okay. Like, I don't mean targets like to be singled out and like hurt. I mean, like if you thought moshing was fun with 200 people, well, wait till you see what moshing with 2,000 people is like, and it was like, everybody came along, like, cause we still played hardcore shows. Like we definitely didn't ever stop playing hardcore, and we still played Bury Your fucking Dead. You know what I mean? Like we weren't like, well, that's not even us anymore. And those songs on Beauty and the Breakdown, I mean, those songs were heavy as fuck.
Oh yeah. I mean, 12th Stroke of Midnight, like and then Poison Apple. I mean, I remember the first time I heard the breakdown at the end of Poison Apple. I was like, what? It's like, man, I do not want to see this shit live, yo. Like, what the hell? And what's cool about that too is I remember Aura Fest when you guys played, I want to say it was Poison Apple, and this is what's cool, kind of a dynamic that you guys have as well live, is you slow shit down so much.
Oh my God.
And I remember it was like the part where you would say fuck and then dun 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 dun, but y'all slowed that shit down so much it didn't even sound like the same song anymore. It was like ga da da ga da ga da da, and I was like, everybody in the crowd was like, Woo! Like doing that scream right whenever something hits really hard. Whenever you guys are working on that stuff, like live or as far as playing that music live, do you just kind of wing it sometimes? Is Mark maybe like giving you a cue to be like, hey, we're going to slow this shit down super slow? Or do you guys practice it like that? Or like, how does that work with y'all?
Well, it's funny because describing it like that, all of the things that you just said would be much more professional than the way that we do it. It's literally just like Mark will play it slower than we've ever played it before. You know, we'll get to a breakdown and Mark will smile and he'll do a little gesture and we'll be like, okay, here we'll go. And he'll play it slower than he's ever played it before. And then literally we'll be done and we'll be like, all right, that was insane. We have, I bet you we can go even slower than that. And, but that's the thing is like again, you talk about, just to go back, like, I think that's one of the things that makes Barrier to a hardcore band is like when I grew up listening to hardcore bands, the CDs, the 4-song like cassette tapes that were like really popular when I first started getting into hardcore were like, those were really just so you knew the songs when you got to the show. Like I didn't listen to those being like, oh, well, this is the kind of music that I sit down to and enjoy, you know, like a lot. Like, no, I listened to those songs in my car so I could practice so that when Converge played the next time, I would know all the words when I was jumping off the stage. And like I'm listening to these Buried Alive songs obsessively like their band practice. It's not, and I don't know if anybody can relate to that. I have no idea if that's an exclusive like thing, but like,
oh yeah,
I have to imagine a lot of people feel that way. When I was listening to Earth Crisis when I was little, I was like in Earth Crisis, so that when Earth Crisis would come to shows, I would steal the microphone and jump off the stage, and it would just be bananas. It would just be truly chaos. And that's like when Bury Your Dead records music, when we play the shows, they're not just replaying the recording. Like there's not tracks that are playing what we recorded on the track. There's not, and I have no problem with bands that play with tracks. I love big stage sound. I love that that's like part of the new generation of music. It's just not our part. Like I want to be able to slow it down. I want to be able to respond to how the crowd is feeling. There's times where we start Collateral and people are just like, they don't respond. Like, okay, this is clearly more of a nostalgic crowd. This is not their favorite song. Well, I'm not going to milk the breakdown at the end of Collateral. Like if we play, you know, a newer song like Slaughterhouse 5 and people are really getting into it. Okay. Like, so this band has been following Bury Your Dead. Like this group has been following Bury Your Dead. We're going to give them the goods here. And, I don't know. I just feel like that's how it has to be.
Yeah. Kind of speaking on what you were talking about you listen to the song so much that you become part of the band. There are definitely people that have done that. And I'll give you a specific example. Me and our bassist did that for sure when you guys came through. I think this was 2011, 2012. You guys did 2 dates in Georgia. It was like one of the 7 venues, and the next day was Augusta. And we both took off work. And I actually think that he, up until that point, had never worked out before. And the goal for both of us was to gain at least 10 to 15 pounds of muscle, get our cardio up. So that way, just specifically, so we can mosh at these 2 shows. Swear to God. So there's definitely other people that are doing that same thing as you too, man. Trust me.
Yeah, well, it was important. Otherwise, you get eaten alive out there.
Yeah, right. You had to have your chops up for sure. Tyler Bedford, what's up, man? Katie Virgil says, what's up, Matt?
Hi, Katie. How's every little thing? Katie just went to Europe to watch Metallica because she lives that travel for shows life.
Wow, that's badass. Yeah. Damn, that must have been an amazing experience.
Someday when I grow up.
Yeah. Jeremy wants to know if y'all are working on anything new.
So there are some songs that have been written and recorded. They don't have vocals yet. I don't know what we're doing with them. They're just more, but whatever the next step of Carnage is, they're that. So
okay. Well, we're stoked about that, man. It's safe to say everybody here is fucking excited for that, whatever it's going to be for sure. Jeremy also says, if you milk Collateral live, all caps, I'm throwing my shoulder out.
Oh yeah. Oh, nobody. That's the cool thing about this. Like, it used to be, you go to Bury Your Dead shows and you were like, oh, like the Hatebreed shirts. Like, I survived the Hatebreed pit. Well, it's like, you didn't survive the pit anymore. You survived yourself. So all the injuries are self-inflicted. Oh, I blew out both my knees to Bury Your Dead, and now I can't coach my kids at T-ball.
Yeah, for sure. Consequences are a lot higher now than they used to be.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
right.
it's like you have to do the cardio and the warming up and the exercise and just to even come out of there feeling remotely even the same as you used to when you didn't do any of that shit, right? I
recommend a lot. I'm a big favor of stretching. I myself don't work out a lot. I'm shaped like a bowling ball, but I get my stretches in.
Yeah, for sure. Tyler Bedford. Actually, I'm pretty sure he was at one of us. He was with us at one of those shows, weren't you, Tyler? He says, yeah, that was 2011, Summer of Bury Your Dead. I think that's what we called it. But yeah, we did. He had never lifted weights before, not Tyler, but my friend Ant. And he was like, man, I want to gain like 10 pounds for this. And we worked out in the garage and we just listened to the songs. It was the nerdiest shit, but goddamn, it was fun.
That's so sick, dude. That's awesome.
For sure. Let me see here. Let me go through a couple more comments here. So kind of talking back about kind of previous shows and stuff. Oh, this is what I want to touch on. Texas Independence Fest. Man.
Who headlined that?
That was Despised Icon.
Despised Icon, right.
Yep. Yeah. And you guys play right before them. So it was Despised Icon, you guys, Unearth, Carnifex, Through the Eyes of the Dead, Oceano, On Broken Wings. I mean, it was just like straight turn of the century chord, just the entire lineup. I mean, it was insane. Those types of shows, do you have a preference, or, well, not really maybe a preference, but playing these kind of older throwback shows, because even in 2016, I mean, that's considered a throwback show for a lot of those bands.
Oh, for sure.
Do you have a preference? It's like, hey, if I could only do these kind of throwback shows, or if we could just play with all these new bands. I mean, do you have a preference, or there's some that you like more than others, maybe, or maybe you notice a different dynamic between those two?
I mean, there's definitely a different dynamic, right? You play those like throwback festivals, like, and then we did a Furnace Fest is like another example where they like seem to go for like a certain era of like hardcore and punk rock bands, and those are really fun. But I don't necessarily have a preference. I just like playing shows. Like a lot of the shows that we play now are with like newer bands. We play a ton of shows with Great American Ghosts. Like, that is such a great friggin' band, and there's no nostalgia there, right? Like, that band's out on the grind doing it every day now. Edict is another example, right? So yeah, I don't necessarily have a preference either way. I like the festivals that have like, some throwback bands for sure, but most of the shows that we play aren't necessarily like that.
Yeah.
They have a different vibe, but I mean, when you just start chanting "Bury Your Fucking Dead" over and over and over again, like, both of the shows become the same show. Everybody piles on.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like what you were saying earlier. It's like, even if I am seeing this band live for the first time and I don't know the lyrics to this, I probably already know the lyrics now by this point.
I got this one down. Right.
Yeah, I can at least walk on some heads to this one and at least shout the same shit they are. Kind of speaking about your recording processes. It's obviously a lot different than it was back then. Kind of what you were saying about how the technology has come so far. I mean, obviously drum samples, like you mentioned earlier. Drum samples have come super far. I mean, it's pretty safe to say, man, people that even have audio experience and are really good listeners to music and can pick out frequencies and natural tones and ambience or whatever else, 95% of people can't tell the difference. So, I mean, is there a different way that you guys approach writing music now than you might have used to in the past? Or is it just kind of like, hey, this guy makes good recordings, let's just wing it? Or is it like, hey, we'd rather do it more natural, or maybe not use as many drum samples, or drum samples are cool? Because you guys did that one EP with DL. I mean, that versus when you guys went to Audio Hammer and did Beauty and the Breakdown. I mean, how are you guys approaching recording now based on how you've done it in the past? I mean, so many different places that you've been.
Yeah, well, all the drums on the stuff that we're kind of like playing around with right now or live. And I don't know. I'm like the worst person in the band to ask that question because I don't have an ethical way of weighing. I just want it to sound good.
Yeah. Okay.
I would tell you that I know Mark well enough to know that Mark will tell you the drums being live is important to him. I mean, he's like such an asset, right? Like anybody that's ever tried to get a band off the ground knows that the drummer is literally probably the hardest piece. So to have literally the greatest drummer that's ever been in a hardcore band to be your drummer, like if you're not leveraging that and you're not doing drums live, like you're fucking blowing it. So
dude, you're right.
So that's what I would say about that. But like I'm not usually a huge piece of the writing and recording music. Like usually those guys get together, they write songs, they're sending each other music. You know, even back when Slim was in the band, it was like Slim and Mark would get together and write songs, and then somebody just sends me a pretty close to finished thing. And I'm like, oh, okay, I can, sit at a Denny's with Melissa and write words to this. So I'm sorry that I can't answer that question with some cool, insightful thing.
No.
Mark is the best, and he's my favorite. And if he listens to something, writes something, and records something, and gives it a thumbs up, I'm going to put words on it. So.
Yeah, for sure. No, I agree completely about Mark, man. I mean, Mark, he's such a good drummer, dude. I mean, and the fills that what's so interesting about Mark too is that he played with Between the Buried and Me there for a little bit, so he has these super intense, crazy progressive chops, but he's skillful enough of a drummer to where he can dial it back for the music that is Bury Your Dead. Because obviously he can't just go around and do stuff that might have worked for Between the Buried and Me and Bury Your Dead because they're two completely different bands. So that's how you know that you also do have a good drummer, that they can say, okay, this skill set that I have, this level of technicality works for this band, but Bury Your Dead is not that, so I need to do something different. And he can do that and also still make it tasteful and make it fit the music and make it badass.
Yeah. That Between the Buried and Me record, that Silent Circus that he did is like just so insane when you see what he does on drums. And then
truly
touring with Between the Buried and Me and watching him do it live in cowboy boots with a cigarette hanging out of his mouth while he plays this thing where he has to count to 13, then count to 11, then count to 17, and then it goes to 4/4 time, while in between he's trying to light a second cigarette before the first one runs out. And you're like, okay, like he's literally bored by this, is like the level of genius that we're talking about. Like,
wow.
Like cowboy boot, cigarette in his mouth while he tries to light another cigarette, watching him count in with his mind's eye is like Mark. I mean, he's a fucking machine. It's crazy. That's
insane. I didn't even know that was a dynamic or that ever happened.
Yeah, that's him. Like that's how.
Which is funny because you can when you describe that, it kind of makes sense for Bury Your Dead. You're like, all right, yeah, that's for sure. He would totally do that. But when you're like, yeah, they're playing the Silent Circus, but BT Bam, and he's doing that, it's like, yeah, this is freaking hilarious.
That's why when you see him do Bury Your Dead stuff, like with Bury Your Dead, he's got time to hit a thing, throw two sticks in the air, throw a cigarette into the crowd, grab another stick out and start to play, then throw those two and catch the first two. He's stopping cymbals with his elbow and then pretending to fall asleep. I mean, he's the showman. He's the greatest.
Do you guys go out of your way during practice to kind of implement that stuff into your live set? I've seen you guys before, especially during Mosh and Roll. Hell, at this point, it almost feels like Mosh and Roll is kind of just like an open call. Whoever grabs the guitar first gets to chug the breakdown for the song, even if it's somebody in the audience. Do you guys kind of plan for stuff like that when you're practicing, or is it just kind of like one of those fly by the seam of your pants kind of thing? Whatever happens.
Yeah. So all that makes it sound like we practice. I will tell you, we have practiced as a band like exactly 2 times in probably the last 10 years. Our practice is
What?
sound check. Because the thing, we don't live anywhere near each other. Practice costs money.
Man,
So
you're right.
when we go to play Aura Fest, right? So the first show it's 4 shows. The first show is in Cincinnati. We're all gonna fly in. We're gonna, hang out the night before, eat way too much food, laugh, blah 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 blah, and then the next day we'll do sound check and we'll be like, "You guys want to run through 2 songs?" And Mark will be like, "Oh yeah, can we make sure that we play Eyes Wide Shut, because I don't remember how that transition goes." And then that is the summary of practice. That's it.
Wow. Do you guys play, maybe you practice it individually on your own? Like, hey, maybe you might put the song in and just run through it on vocals, or maybe one of the guitarists might put it on and just run through guitars with it? Or is it just truly a thing like, we play it live and then we don't touch that shit again until we play live again?
I know. I don't want to make anybody sound unprofessional. So I know that Kane and Recon and Towning do put in time.
Okay.
At home, like making sure that like things are tight, and then you see them on stage, like when we're warming up. They'll do like a chord progression, and then the other one will be like, "Oh, okay," and like remember it. So it's not like they're literally just straight up guessing, but like me and Mark usually just sit in the van while the other bands are playing and listen to a couple songs to be like, "Oh, right, those are the words," and that's really it. But that's the thing is like, then eventually we're gonna play "Bury Your Fucking Dead," and then you just hand the guitar off to somebody else. And Mark, I mean, at the last one, we were like, somebody here has to know how to play these songs on drums. And like some kid got up super enthusiastically and took the drumsticks, and literally all he's got to do is play "Bury Your Fucking Dead." Like there's never been an easier drum song.
Yeah.
And it was instantly obvious that this guy's never actually sat at a drum set in his entire life. He was just really excited. So he just started smashing cymbals and like hitting all the drums like a child would in an episode of Full House. Like it was like awesome.
Yeah.
So, we did eventually have to take the drumsticks from him and let Mark go give it a shot. But
that's badass.
It was pretty fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Nothing will beat playing a show in I think it was in Indiana, and I think like legitimately there was like 12 people paid. So we played to a room that's probably could hold 1,500 people and had 12 people plus the other bands in it. And we were like, all right, like we're just going to have a good time, blah, 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 blah. And then I was like, you get up here and play this song. And I was like, someone here has to be able to play guitar for "Bury Your Fucking Dead." And I singled this guy out. Now, again, that would be no big deal if we were in a room with 2,000 people, but I singled him out. There's only 5 other people there. And he raises his hand and highlights that he's only got one arm. So of the 12 people paid, I chose the one guy that couldn't actually play "Bury Your Fucking Dead."
But he can chug it though, right?
That's what I don't. Maybe he doesn't know how to palm mute. That's exactly what I said. I was like, it's an open chord anyway. You just have to palm mute. But now it sounds like I'm just arguing with one guy that actually paid to see my band out of a total of 12 people. So
that's hilarious. No, that's funny. But yeah, no, I don't think nobody thinks you guys are unprofessional for only practicing twice in 10 years or whatever it was. I mean, if anything, man, that just shows how much you guys know the music and how good of musicians you are. I mean, to where it's kind of like what you were saying about Mark, man, where it's like Mark can run up to play the Silent Circus wearing cowboy boots and have a cigarette hanging out of his mouth, and it's just like the easiest shit for him. And he's the same guy that can also just, oh yeah, I just listen to, we're going to play a, 45, 50-minute set, listen to a couple of songs, yeah, we're cool, and then just nail it. I mean, yeah. There's a certain level of, hell, that's professionalism in and of itself, if you ask me, but there's a level of musicianship there too that not a lot of people have. Man, if we didn't practice our shit like dozens of times a week, I feel like I'd step on stage and my guitar would fall apart. I mean, so the fact that you guys are doing that is pretty awesome, man. I don't think it's unprofessional. I think it's badass, and it just shows that hell, maybe it's just because you guys have been playing the music too for so long that it's just ingrained in your bones And even if you wanted to, you couldn't forget it at this point. But
yeah, that maybe we just wrote them too simple. Yeah.
Yeah. Who knows? Yeah, it could be another part of it. Yeah, Orfest says, seeing BT Bam next month. Oh, yeah, that'll be badass.
Yeah.
Anthony, tell him about the hunt. Yeah, Anthony came in. We used to played in a band with him previously. We used to tour a little bit, and we wore Beauty and the Breakdown out so much on the road to where the CD stopped working. And
remember when that was a thing that could happen?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, you go over a bump and you got to rewind the song 2 minutes. Yeah, definitely played the shit out of that CD, and we really liked the guitar tone so much where we started having our own kind of moniker for it, where it was like called the Hun Huns, because that's how our drummer at the time, who didn't know anything about audio recording, described how the guitar tone sounded. So if you look in chat and you see him talking about the Huns, that's a little bit of backstory about that. Hun. But yeah, Jeremy also says, sounds like, okay, so apparently Second Death practice is pretty much the same as what you guys do.
Yeah, first show is the practice spot. That is well worded. That's it.
Yeah.
We'll figure it out.
First show was a practice spot. That's funny. Yeah, so let me see here. Are there any bands that you personally, or maybe the band as a whole, kind of moving forward, or kind of like some bucket list items for you guys? I mean, this could be any band, any genre, whatever it is, big or small. It's like, yeah, Bury Your Dead, we want to play shows with these bands. Like, who would you pick?
I don't know. I can't answer that for the other guy. There really isn't anyone for me. Because I don't know. I don't know how to answer that question without sounding like a real piece of shit. But like I want to be very clear. You're talking to a guy that like is going to go play these 4 shows. Like I don't care if there's literally 12 people there. Like there was 12 people paid at that show in Indiana. That doesn't bother me at all. But I'm not interested in playing. Like, I don't think it's like a thing to play with a bigger band, because that bigger band is going to do it with or without me. I'd rather see what, like, I like doing what Bury Your Dead. Like, for me, it's more destinations. Like, I've never played Japan before. Like, what I want Bury Your Dead to get to play Japan. Bury Your Dead's been to Australia. I've never been to Australia before. I want to go play Australia so friggin' bad, but I don't want to play Australia so I can tell everybody I played with AC/DC. Like, who gives a shit? I'm not. I don't know. And I'm not trying to say that. Like, I'm sure if you ask the other members of my band, they'd be like, "Oh yeah, it would be really sick to play with band X."
Yeah.
But I'm more like. Well, no, if I was going to go to Australia, I would rather headline a show at Australia to 40 people paid than go to Australia and play at 3:00 in the afternoon before Limp Bizkit does their thing. Do you know what I mean? Because then why did I even go there? Like,
yeah, I get where you're coming from.
I don't know. But I also realize that makes me sound like a fucking pretentious piece of shit. But.
No, not at all. I mean, for you, it's different. It's more about like you said, the destinations. Like you're a little more goal oriented, I guess, as far as taking your band somewhere, not necessarily with other bands you want to play with, but locations, destinations, right? Japan, for instance, which I feel like Bury Your Dead in Japan would be a crazy thing. I mean, because
even they know the words.
Yeah,
right?
they're super intense out there too. I mean, everything that they do, it just seems like it's just max effort, max energy. So you can probably just imagine what a Bury Your Dead pit in Japan would look like. I mean, it would just be karate and just kicks and just crazy shit. They do wild stuff out there, man. So hopefully you guys get to go out there, man. That'd probably be a badass opportunity for y'all for sure.
Yeah, I don't know. I like, the thing is now, like, it has to be something special to get off the couch.
Yeah.
Like, because I have the kids, you know, I coach T-ball. I got to get them to gymnastics. We have the camper we go to on the weekends. I really love my job. I'm like the luckiest piece of shit on the planet. So, you know, if somebody wants Bury Your Dead to play shows, I'm not going to be like, oh, I'll come play that show so that I can tell everybody I played a show with blah, blah, blah. I'd be like, oh, I'll come play that show because I'll take my wife to Australia.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So
Yeah. There's a different benefit there for you instead of the first option. Yeah.
I mean, look how old I am. Look at all this. I'm no spring chicken. I'm not.
Just for Men just sponsored this post.
Yeah. No, I like it. You can't buy this kind of experience. This is like.
No, that's pushing Silver Fox territory.
Right?
Isn't that what that is? Yeah. I think even if you don't have the gray on top of the head yet, you still technically qualify as Silver Fox because that's you got it on the side here coming in.
It's like thinning. Like this used to be more hair. Now it's like if it looks like hair, I just leave it.
Hey man, I don't know if you heard about a derma roller, but I just actually started using one of those. You can just like run this derma roller on your scalp and it'll just like start growing them back.
No.
Swear to God.
I don't think that's how science works.
It is actually. It does it because it's a micro needler, so it has these small tiny needles on it, and you roll it. I actually use it on my beard too. And it's supposed to help.
I don't think I'm not growing hair in the front because there isn't enough holes. I don't think that's the issue.
Well, it helps you to recreate them and creates new ones, increases blood flow, boom, hair comes back. So, hey, who knows? Maybe we'll see Matt in a Bury Your Dead show one day and he just has a full head of hair and has de-aged himself 20 years. Who knows?
Yeah. I'm going to go. I don't know. I'm going to struggle with that, I think.
Yeah. Tim from Orifest said same. That's funny. That's funny. Do you have a favorite Bury Your Dead song? One that's maybe you just like personally and maybe one that you like to play live. Do you have a favorite?
So my favorite Bury Your Dead song that we've ever written is actually Slaughterhouse 5. There's something that's like super chaotic and crazy about it. And I had been away from the band for a long time. So when I came back, like getting to hear a song that I was like, oh, I find this song exciting, I think was like surprising. I don't know how else to say that. So my favorite song that Bury Your Dead has is Slaughterhouse 5. But my favorite song to play live is Color Money. That song has taken on a life of its own. I don't even think people even know or care what it's actually about anymore because everybody's kind of personalized it and some people use that as their song in the gym and some people use that as their song in therapy and some people punch the mirrors of their car off to that song and some people just cry to that song. And I fucking love every minute of it. And when we play that song and you see like, we play shows and there are some songs that these guys like and there's some songs that those people like and the people in the front really like this one and the people in the back really like that one. But when we play that one, there's a lot of people that like have really personalized that song. And they're like, okay, well, this one's mine. And whatever it is I came to do here today, I was prepared to get kicked out today. It was going to be during this song. Mm-hmm. And that's how I feel when we play it. When we go, dude, like me personally, I'm like, okay, here we go. Like it's a good one.
Yeah. That's a Bury Your Dead live experience necessity right there. Do you have any perhaps maybe favorite specific venues that you've played before or specific shows that you've played before? I mean, obviously we've been talking about a whole host of just crazy ass shows and experiences that you guys have had, either from playing in the middle of a desert to playing in the back of a Mexican restaurant. But kind of aside from all that, or maybe including that, do you have any specific favorite venues or shows ever that you can think of?
All right, so venues, the Palladium in Worcester is the best. Like I'm lucky because it's like my hometown venue. I'm lucky because I've played there a million times and I've seen billions of bands there. But it's a super important venue. It's the venue that it's the reason people bother to wiggle into New England. Like tours have to dead end into New England and leave. And the only reason they do it is because of the Palladium. Mm. And then the West Coast home away from home is definitely Chain Reaction. I mean, we've played so many good shows down in like that area. And they've got such great venues and like so much history in some of those venues, but none of it matters because Chain Reaction is just the best.
Yeah.
The people there get it. They've been doing it a long time. It's got a name for itself. There's, I take a lot of pride in the fact that Bury Your Dead in whenever that was, 2004 or what, whenever we recorded that DVD is like had a small piece in kind of what that venue has achieved. But it's because it's an important place.
Yeah.
And then so many favorite shows. I mean, I was thinking about a show that I haven't mentioned in a long time. There's two Hellfests. One that Bury Your Dead wasn't supposed to play, where a band let us jump on and we did one song and Bury Your Fucking Dead, and that was it.
Huh?
And everybody collapsed the tent. The entire circus tent that was designed to house, 1,500 people.
Hey, Matt, I don't mean to cut you off, but it sounds like something's happening with the phone there. It sounds like something's rattling or something. Yeah, it's making it where we can't. Not sure what's going on. It almost sounds like a marble in a Coke can or something.
How about right now? Is it still?
Yeah, that's better. Yeah, for sure.
Oh, that's so weird.
Yeah, Katie said I left my ass off. What is that noise? Yeah, we're trying to get it fixed.
All right, but it's so it seems okay now.
It's still doing it. Yeah, that's really strange.
Oh, it's still doing it.
Yeah.
I
don't know how to describe it. It sounds like you dropped a marble in a tin can and like shook it around.
How about now?
That's better.
Weird. I did move
really
my
weird.
phone. I don't know if it was like interference or something like that.
It might have been, honestly. Anyway, back to the now that we got that issue out of the way. Carnival tent, collapsing the tent, whatever it was you were talking about. Let's hear about that more.
There was literally just people like hanging from tent poles and just dragging that thing to the earth, and it was just awesome because we weren't even supposed to play it. And then that was followed the next year. Hellfest was at this like indoor like soccer place, and we played, and it was so funny because I was like, we played one of the most violent, crazy. I mean, I was literally standing on stage being like, thank God I'm in this band, because if I wasn't in this band, I would have to mosh, and that looks so scary. And that set that we played at that Hellfest was like literally like stuff I've never seen before. It was so insane. An entire soccer field, front to back, carnage. And I remember getting off stage and just being like, literally, like we just played Bury Your Fucking Dead, and the pylon was so insane. And I just like, I literally thought concretely, nobody will ever top that. That is the end all be all of whatever this is. And then walked away, went to I got tattooed. I was gone, and I came back and I watched, I got on stage and I watched Lamb of God go. And I mean, he goes, see who gives a fuck. Yep. And that violence was so much more violent than what I was just patting myself on the back for. I was literally like, oh, never mind. Mine was like teenager, fun, exuberant violence. This is hate. Like this was a whole nother level, depth of violence. And I was just, I mean, that band is just so sick. And I just remember that so vividly. Like when I think back at shows, I'm like, oh yeah, remember that time that you thought you actually did some shit? And then Randy was like, oh, hold my beer.
Yeah. What year was that? Do you remember? I
don't remember. They all bleed together. I don't remember. If I had to guess, I would say 2006. That's a complete guess, but
okay,
there is.
Okay. I'm going to try to look that up and see if there might be some archaic footage from that, perhaps, because that sounds, that sounds like a crazy ass show. Was it literally in the middle of a soccer field? Is that what that was?
It was indoors, and it was so there was a bunch of stages. But there was two soccer fields next to two indoor soccer fields that were like, it was like hockey arenas because they had like boards around them. And they were two fields next to each other, and each field had a stage. So the bands just went one stage to the next, and then back, which is very common festival practice to have two main stages and kind of toggle back and forth. But back at this time, that actually wasn't super common. So you could really like the density of bands, the number of bands, the sheer number of bands that played that festival was crazy. It just went back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. Yeah, that was a crazy year.
So up until that point, you hadn't really seen a dynamic with festivals like that. That probably made it to where there was just a shitload more people out there. It's like, whoa, wow, there's two stages for this, and they're alternating back and forth. So it's like that seems like an environment during that time period, early 2000s, where it's like you're just gonna bring even more people in because of that, because they're not really used to seeing that yet. It's almost like now you go to a festival now, like Furnace Fest or something else, you expect to see that. But you're right. I mean, around that time,
yes, it was. It really did feel like some crazy. Like I was just like, oh, these bands are not going to stop. I mean, like when are you supposed to breathe and go outside with your friends and tell stories about the last thing you saw? Well, you couldn't, because the next band was literally already ringing out.
Yeah, for sure. We talked about Emmett Smith. So I guess we'll wrap up here pretty soon. There's anything that you want to say as kind of like a farewell to anybody? Like, hey, maybe it's like, hey, we're doing this, go to this show, go listen to this thing, stream this thing here, whatever it is. What do you got to say to everybody right now, to say to the fans?
No, just listen, like we don't do it a lot, and that's fine. So if you want to come to these, come to them. I'd love to see everybody there. But like when we say we're going to play Cincinnati and people are like, oh, come to Cleveland. It's like, no, I'm really not gonna. Like, you need to drive to Cincinnati. When people like we're playing, like Aurafest is going to be awesome. Like the only reason we're getting off the couch is to play Aurafest. So we put together 4 shows total. And literally the only reason we're doing it is because Tim asked us to do Aurafest, and that show's going to be awesome. So I think VIP is almost sold out. I know that he sold a ton of tickets to the event, so it's going to be great. I'm super excited to play more shows with Joe and, drum up some old school. They're going to be very nostalgia driven shows, but nothing fills me with joy more than, we're playing, one of the shows that we're playing is in Florida. And everybody's like, oh, come back to Orlando. Nope. This is the one we're playing in Florida. So
said nope.
Rent a car. I don't know what to tell you. I'm never gonna just do a circle around the country, stopping at every venue anymore. It's done. Yeah. So we have, the last time we played those 4 shows, kind of New England, New York. These 4 shows kind of do the central and kind of like the south, like again between Aurafest and that show in Florida. And then maybe there'll be a West Coast date. That's it. Yeah. So if you want to see Bury Your Dead and you want to see us play these songs from You Had Me at Hello, if we say that we're doing something and you can drive to it, I highly recommend you drive to it, because they're awesome.
Yeah, people already seem to get pretty mad when bands announce a whole 45 straight day tour and they don't come within 2 hours of them. Well, guess what? Bury Your Dead really ain't doing that.
No. I'm telling you, I'm already getting in an airplane to go there. So if you can't do better than that, what are we doing?
Yeah.
Right, exactly. But Chicago, though. Yeah, exactly.
Chicago. Right? That's funny. Well, Matt, man, dude, we appreciate it so much, man. This has been really fun, man. Learned a lot of interesting things about the band that previously, to me at least, and probably some people that were watching, were just kind of rumors, and you were able to answer some of those and clarify that. And we got a lot of good history on the band and a lot of insight into you and your personality. I think a lot of people too would be pretty interested to hear you doing vocals live and on the recording and actually hearing you speak. It's like, wait, that's the same guy.
Yeah, it's cool. I get to do it all then, so that during the normal day I can just be Mickey Mouse all the time.
Yeah, just be a normal, just nice ass dude. Yeah, but man, we appreciate it so much, man. We appreciate you coming out, taking some time away from your dad life, Bury Your Dead life, also to come out and do this interview, man. So we appreciate you so much. Thanks everybody too that was in chat. Thanks to Tim and Katie and Anthony and Tyler and Jeremy and second death, Edith, everybody that came by. Thank you so much. But yeah, man, Matt, thank you so much, man. If you don't mind, actually hang out a little bit. We'll chat a little bit after the interview. But yeah, thank you again so much for coming out, man.
Yeah, dude, I really appreciate it. I appreciate you working through my technology issues at the beginning and not getting mad at me. This was great. I really enjoyed the time. Everybody come to these 4 shows, and I'll see you next time.